Going live.
You didn't click it.
What's up, Facebook? Oops, I wasn't supposed to say Facebook, was I? Big Red SEO fans.
We'll cut
I wasn't
that.
supposed to say Facebook.
Yeah.
Anyway, hey, welcome to what?
It's hello, friends.
Hey, welcome to episode 6 here of our live of sharing the journey of a husband and wife team. As you can tell from our backgrounds, we're in our home backyard today in Omaha, Nebraska. We actually decided probably a little over an hour ago. I decided to come back to the house to get a massage. Conor decided to start his weekend early, which makes him super happy. But we wanted to make sure that we were able to chat with you guys and provide some information. So this is going to be kind of a different episode. We're going to give you a lot of information. I don't know where the camera is. Where's the camera? Is it over
Camera's
here?
right there. Bottom
here,
left.
Here.
Bottom left.
I keep. So look there.
Bottom left.
Yeah.
Right
yeah,
there.
hey.
Did you do your thing?
Yeah,
No.
no, I didn't. So we wanted to share some updates with you guys about some different stuff that we had go on. But let's start with the notification that you just received.
Sure. It's actually been an entire week of alerts and problems and exploits and computer crashes and
All the fun
router
stuff.
exploits and you name it, it's been happening. Thankfully, not to me directly, but it's been happening nonetheless. The latest one, I just got an email from Adobe that there's a 0-day exploit in Adobe Flash. So if you have Adobe Flash on your computer, you should update it. Essentially, the exploit happens because code is embedded inside of an Excel file. Somebody opens up the Excel file, and then their computer gets exploited. It's a 0-day exploit, so take care of it. So you really shouldn't have Flash on your computer anymore, but for the million plus people that do, go ahead and get that taken care of.
It's amazing how many people actually do still have Flash. And I will say how many different programs require Flash still by default to install.
There's a lot of programs that by default have it. So.
And then Flash website designs too, right?
There's a couple of Flash websites,
And
but
there's a lot.
Anybody who has them, I mean,
They're
they
pretty
need a new web designer.
Oh, across the board. So, like, we typically don't deal with software and hackings and different information like that.
What's that?
I don't know. It's like we're just enjoying it. It's the umbrella, not umbrella. But we thought that it would be important to share that, as well as we actually had a live situation of a family member that got their router hacked. So, do you want to talk about that a little bit as well?
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, the FBI put out a notice that it was an exploit inside of routers, basically, allowing somebody to take control of that router and redirect traffic and use it for attacks and things like that. But basically, all that's required is restart your router. So unplug it, count to 30, plug it back in, and everything's back to normal. But basically, these attacks, they're taking control of DNS and then rerouting people to particular websites. In the case that I was looking at, it basically told the user, it loaded up one particular page. It wouldn't let them do anything else on the computer. So it loaded up a page that said, Windows has detected an error. Please call this number. And it gives an 800 number. More than likely, they'll then ask for a credit card and blah, blah, blah. It's a phishing. It's a hack attack. So and
this specific individual actually had their desktop hacked as well as a laptop within their home area. We go ahead.
And when you say them hacked, the computers,
through the router.
The computers themselves weren't hacked.
Right.
But because the router in their house was infected, it affected any device that then logged in through it.
Yeah.
Your phones, your computers, your tablets, everything. So think of it like if an office situation and you have 20 employees in the office or 20 devices, all of them will be taken control of at that one point in time. So.
And I think it's worth saying, like, we personally don't work on computers. A lot of people ask us to. It's just not our area of expertise at all. But we always pay attention to these notifications because it is pretty serious. And if you don't take action, then you can get in some trouble a little bit. So,
your computer gets locked and then you accidentally make the phone call and give people your credit card number and then,
Yeah. So we definitely wanted to make sure we shared that because that was pretty important. Another thing I wanted to share with regarding website design was a couple conversations we had this week with sometimes people want to design a website and they feel like they need a website, they feel like it's part of the business process, which we talked a little bit about last week as well, which we would agree with. But at the end of the day, if you are looking to design a website from scratch or redesign your website, you have to determine what is the purpose of the website in general. Just having a website, if you go to an individual that's a freelancer, or if you come to us, we're going to ask discovery questions and kind of do it. But there are places that just like sell templates that people will buy from, and they don't really think through the process of what are we wanting the website to do? Are we wanting it to generate us new sales? Are we wanting to have the website show us as an authority in our industry? Are we wanting brand reputation? Are we wanting to highlight community involvement and kind of like what our company stands for? Believe it or not, some designers and some template companies or companies that put together templates won't ask those questions and they won't go through it.
Yeah, they by default, when you buy a template, you're kind of on your own. If you need anything modified from that template, there's usually a link back to the designer, and you pay them whatever it is for them to make a color change or a logo change or whatever. The problem that I have with templates in general is that they're usually packed with every possible industry so that it can be used for a wide audience. Good. Or good from the designer's end, but bad from a user's end.
Yeah. So
it falls back. We talked about it before. Bloated code and that kind of stuff slows down your website.
Thanks for joining, guys.
As a result. Yeah, that's all I got on there.
Something else about, like, if you purchase a template and they have all those different forms, or just a template in general, and you decide to put it together yourself, or you have a designer put it together for you and they're not us. We hope it's us, but it's just in case, like, they're not us. I think one of the things that you need to also address is there's so many staged pages, and so like the templates want to show you how the whole thing can be laid out and the options you have. Hey, Chris, how are you? They want to show you the options that you have. So what'll happen is a lot of those pages will stay live because people don't know to deactivate them or default them into just like a draft mode, if that makes sense. And so when you go to launch your brand new website design, right, and you don't know how to do these certain protocols, you actually have links that are not valid links that are linking people to different pages that actually can get indexed through Google specifically, as well as like the deleting of links for other pages. So do you want to briefly talk about that? Because I don't think, sometimes when people are like, oh, I'll just build my own website design, I'll buy this template off of like whatever, I'm not going to say any names, I'll snap it together over the weekend. There's multiple things that they don't think about.
Sure. So yeah, you kind of touched on them. You know, a lot of the themes out there will have a team page or a media page and things like that, and most people don't use the team functionality.
Yeah.
The problem is, though, it gets indexed by Google, and Google then brings up all that generic content. One of the biggest problems that I have with themes in general is that usually don't click.
I tried to wave. I tried to wave to you, Chris. It says wave. I'm like, I'm waving. There you go. I waved.
Anyway, one of the problems that I have with the themes is that when you buy it, you buy the theme thinking that it's going to look that way when you load it on your website. The problem, however, is that most times the developers set up the website in a way that the images don't actually they don't transfer into your name.
Correct. Yep.
So they may have a great slider and they may have great images and all that kind of fun stuff. Yeah, I know. Does it?
Hey, Casey, how are you?
Kim is just poking the screen.
I poked you, Chris. I poked you in a good way, not a naughty way. I poked you.
So anyway, you don't have the rights to all the stuff. There's generic content and things like that, but just keep in mind that you have to go back and delete all that crap that you don't want. Sometimes starting fresh is easier, but that's me from a designer end of things.
Yeah.
I'll start fresh.
Yeah.
But with a theme, and I've done a number of themes. Chris, you've helped me with a handful of themes over the years also.
Good ones.
So we have to gut out a lot of this stuff in there that the designer thinks is awesome, but really we're never going to utilize. So that's really all I got on themes. Keeping them updated, that's a big thing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think a lot of times people don't realize like what actually goes into maintaining a website. Like sometimes when we have business owners that are like, oh, I'll just do this quick design myself, and they put up the website and then they don't touch it for a year to 2 years or whatnot. I mean, it's like anything else in life, in business in general. Like your website website is a vehicle that's going to help people get to you, if that makes sense. So treat it with love, give it a little love, go into it, you know, whether it's flip images out, add some new content, spruce it up a little bit, make sure you get the fucking copyright updated. People actually pay attention to the copyright date, believe it or not.
Plugins.
Yeah.
So if you're using WordPress, Joomla, Drupal, any of those CMS systems out there, the plugins are updated on a regular basis by designers and developers. You should be updating those things also. There's a good chance that if you're not using the new features that they have designed, of course you don't need to make the update.
Yeah.
But the chance that there's a security exploit, a patch, anything in there, those all need to be taken care of. I was working on a site earlier today and tried to make a backup of the website and it failed.
Yeah.
The hosting company had a restriction on it. But by the time I was done with the backup, it was 2.3 gigs of files.
It was huge.
And what I discovered was that they had every version of their website backed up. They had multiple backup plugins in there,
Yeah.
so they were making their own backups. And, you know, going back to 2013, there's a backup all the time, and this thing was just crazy. By the time I got rid of everything, we was down to about 400 megs, which is still big for a WordPress website if you only have a limited number of pages. And that leads into images that were too big and
Yeah.
all of that. So that's all stuff that we'll take care of and get it all done. But hello, Todd. How you doing?
Hey, Todd, how are you?
So anyway, that's all I got on the themes and the websites and stuff.
Yeah, and I just think
know.
it's a matter of, like, you know, at some point you might have, what is it, time, resources, or money, right? So you got to decide as a business owner, where can you put your time, where can you put your money, where can you put your resources, especially with website design specifically, since we're talking about that. And sometimes it's better to invest in the professionals doing the job, right? I get the being a startup, and I get trying to pinch pennies, just maybe you don't have them, right? But still, at the end of the day, it's still not an excuse not to find out what is the purpose of your website and what are you trying to do. So I think that it's just going to save you money. If a designer has to, like, walk you through those strategies, and they're not very familiar with them, they could actually hurt your business more than help your business.
Well, if a designer walks you through it, most designers don't ask. So
most designers it's like a puzzle, and they just put the pieces together and say, okay, here you go.
They build the website and say, here, what do you think? They don't ask any feedback until the end.
Yeah.
Going on to the point, that you made of time, money, resources.
Yeah.
You know, we had a situation there a couple of weeks ago. Somebody called up and said, hey, this whole new thing is going to happen in your industry, and it was a copyright thing that was going through, and it was going to affect, in theory, it would affect me and other businesses and Kim and whatever. By the time it was all done, we were looking at trademarks and service marks and patents and all that kind of stuff. By the time it was all done, yes, I could do all the research myself, and all the information is online for me to find, and I can find out the filing dates and how to dispute it and blah, blah, blah. But it was easier and cheaper. Again, time is money. So it was easier and cheaper for me to call our lawyer and say, hey, what do you know? And he actually said, he doesn't know this part, but he pointed us to somebody else, and that gentleman was awesome and went through all the things that we needed. So yes, you can do it all on your own, but, you know, I have other stuff to be doing. You know? I've never done an oil change on my car. I'm 42, 43 years old. I've never
Maybe
done
you'll
an
add
oil
that to your
change.
bucket list. Will you add that to your bucket list?
I have never changed a tire on a car.
Do you add the 2 things to your bucket list?
No.
2? No, he doesn't want to. So, like, I think when you own a business specifically, or just in general, like, we're always talking to the business owners or freelancers, right? But I think at some point you got to, just realize you may not be able to do it all. We're not saying that you're not good at research and you're not good at doing the things, right? But you have to figure out, where does your time need to be? Where do you want your time to be? And then rely heavy on the experts. So, like, we knew, like, as soon as we got into those conversations, I mean, immediately with you, I was like, send it to the lawyer. Like, I don't know the jargon, and I would rather pay somebody that I know that does it, that has always taken really good care of us with something else. Like, I would rather just go that route. So I think at some point you're going to have to discern that and determine determine that. And other times, like we know a lot of business owners that do their own taxes. Like they love doing their own taxes.
Yep.
They dedicate time for it, but then they outsource and they have somebody clean their home and mow their grass, right?
Yep.
So I think at some point you got to discern, like, what do you want to do? How do you want to do it? And not get bogged down by too many things, because again, like I said at last week's video, failure by default, right? If you have too many things on your plate and you're not doing any of them very, very well, you're going to fail by default. So how can you like clean that up?
Yep.
So I want to talk about a sensitive thing that has happened recently over and over again, but I think it's also very important, just it's a best practice for business owners in general.
Okay. Still on business. I thought it was going somewhere else. But okay.
So if you have employees or you have contractors or consultants that work for you that are representing your brand specifically, and they have access to any of your critical information, right? Say that they decide to exit the company, or something doesn't mesh out and you release them and let them go. It's a very serious protocol to make sure you go through and you update all of your passwords and all of your security information.
Yeah. It's just like changing the locks on your office door. You get a new key made, they're barred access, you change your security system code. Yep. Do the same stuff on your website, do it on your computers, do it on your router. Anything that this person had access to, it has to be changed, it has to be updated.
And the things that I will say, a couple of situations that we had, our clients had happen was they had a marketing individual, and that marketing individual left the business, and it was a key employee, right? So they handled all of the marketing.
All the social.
That certain person went through their marketing Google AdWords and deleted their entire ad account. So what this meant was the account was still there, but deleted all the ads. So you could still log into the account, but all the history, all the data, all the active ads, everything was wiped completely out. Now, I'm not here to say who's right and who's wrong in situations, but the
employee was wrong.
But what I can tell you is, one, it is very critical if you hire an employee that you own all rights to it. Don't assume just because an employee works for you and does marketing and creates a logo for you. That's another thing that people get stuck into. Mm-hmm. Creates a logo for you, branding, social media. You need to make sure it's written in paper that you actually own it. Hey, Ronnie, how are you? You need to make sure that you have ownership of that, because here's what could happen. So say that you guys don't have the conversation, right? And then that employee created your logo and then left that company. They could technically resell your logo to another company, and now you have duplicate logos and you have nothing legally that, hey, do you own this? Do you not own this? Does that make sense? The other thing too is that it's really, really important to make sure that as a business owner, you have everything in your name. Like at no point should anything be registered in an employee's information or an employee's personal information. Like last week we had another one where the company called us and said, hey, we need access to our WordPress, and we're like, well, the password's been changed, and then the email for the password was actually for the employee's personal email. Now with you and your history in web hosting, we know how to get around it and kind of go around, but the point is, like, it's definitely worth being proactive in the fact of figure out these policies and make sure at the end of the day it's in your name. If it's not a key business owner, and even still then being a key business owner, if you're the partner, like there's got to be something written up, who owns what and what goes where.
Yeah, Chris made a valid point about the designers and developers. You know, you'll have a web designer, you'll tell them to build a website for you, and they register your domain name for you, they set up hosting for you, they might even put it under their own reseller account, so you never have access. Making sure all of that's in your name. Everything has to be in your name, or whoever is going to be the controlling individual, and make sure there's a secondary backup. Most hosting companies allow you to have 2, 3, even 4 points of contact. So making sure you have a secondary admin, a second point of contact, those are all critical items. Domains, we've seen it more than we'd like to admit, where a domain
And it's
is
like
owned
one
by
of those
somebody.
things. It's one of those things that you don't think of until it happens and it goes bad, right? Like it's one
like
of those, and that's
backups.
one of the reasons why we're having the conversation on Facebook Lives and kind of bringing, like, our business has always been about education, but we're stepping forward and we're saying, look, like, this is a trend. Like, it's not shit that we make up. It happens all the time. The other thing too is, say that an employee does or a developer does own your domain name. We've actually had positions where they've held it hostage from the business owners, and then we had to go we had to like steer them a legal route, right? And luckily we have people that are really good at what they do legally and cross their T's, dot their I's. However, if you don't know to go to a lawyer, right, and you're like, well, gosh, this person's telling me that I have to pay $2,000 to get this domain name. Like, we had one guy that had to pay $10,000. There was a web design held hostage. He had to pay $10,000 to get access to that website design, right?
And it was because it wasn't written in the contract.
Right.
One of the things, you know, when you're hiring employees, and certainly talk to a lawyer, because I'm not a lawyer.
Me neither.
But I've dealt with enough over the years.
I want a gravel, though. Is that what it's called?
Gavel.
No, the lawyers don't have those. Judges do. I want to be a judge.
Yeah, you are a judge. But where was I going?
I don't know.
With contracts and lawyers and stuff. So when an employee works for your company, you can state in the employee contract or hiring terms and so forth that work created within your time on the clock becomes your property. With a contractor, you can't state that. So it has to be stated in black and white that when a contractor is done working on something, that you own the rights to it. And going all the way back to logo designs and graphic design and stuff like that, a lot of designers, they hold the master copies of things, and you get the usage rights to whatever is created. And then when you need something else made, you can go back to that logo designer, and now they'll make letterhead.
We
and now
had,
they'll
like,
make...
what was it, like last month we had a client that needed a copy of their logo, and they had already gone through 4 logo designers to create this logo from scratch. And none of the people, like, they paid for it, but none of the people would give them the master access to the logo doc, right?
It wasn't in the contract.
Anyway, we were able to get them connected with somebody that we knew, and one of the first things that I asked in the very beginning of the communication was, we want the master document. Like, we want to be able to manipulate the logo, and we got it, and now they have it. Like, but they paid, what, 4 or 5 times whatever the logo was to have all these multiple people doing it. So again, it's just about contracts, keeping it clean. Ask more questions than less questions, right?
And it's something that you won't learn about, or you won't run into that situation until it happens to you.
Unless you're watching this video.
Yeah, unless you're watching the video.
And then you get it.
So
since we were talked briefly about domains, let's talk about the recent domain names and the...
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
There was a big announcement at the end of last month, and really it's only coming to light right now, but the .eu domain. So it's the EU, it's for the European Union. And there was a statement made by the European Commissioner that as of the Brexit exit, so when that happens, I guess it's next year that happens, they're just going to hit cancel and delete on about 300,000 domains. So all that SEO work that you've been doing on your .eu website and everything else, all that's going to go out the window because they're going to hit delete. It's not going to affect everybody. It affects about 1/10 of their registrations altogether. So there's 3 million or so EUs, about 300,000 are going to get deleted. The reason they're getting deleted is that in the guidelines, or the to apply for an EU domain, you must be an EU resident, so a European resident. Well, when England has decided to leave the European Union, they no longer fall under the European Union guidelines, which allow them to buy a .eu domain. So if you are a business owner or a person living in England, you no longer have European Union access or credentials, therefore you can't have a .eu domain, and delete. So it's going to be a big thing the next year.
How would you explain all that in a sentence that people would understand? Because you went really... Did you guys feel him go technical?
Sorry.
You went like...
All right, so here's the easy version. If you live in England and you have a .eu domain for your business,
yes,
you will lose it next year. You need to do your marketing now to cross over into a different domain extension.
Yeah, there you go.
Is that better?
Yeah, no, that's good. And make sure you do redirects because they'll face that with a domain name.
Well, yeah, you can do redirects until they delete the domain, at which point
which is null and void. But in the meantime, like, you would tell them to prep it now, do it now.
Oh yeah,
get it done.
You know, like anything else, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to make the comparison. But like anything else, things can change the day before or a week before a particular event that might be happening in a different country that somebody may or may not have said that they are or are not going to go to.
Yeah.
So come the day of the Brexit event, maybe the European Union decides, or the commissioner decides, oh, I was just joking, I'm still going to, you can keep your domains. But right now, that's the deal. That's what has been published, and it's out there. So
yeah, I think it's like, it's like one of those things, like, I mean, you hope that it doesn't happen, but it's better to be prepared and start watching the trends and start watching all the information. Not sure how widespread it is. Yeah, you'll have to
I'll read
address
that one. You
one.
keep talking.
Yeah.
I gotta click see more.
I know, it's
Wow.
like so big. Chris wrote a really, really good thing down at the bottom, so we're trying to make sure that we're
So
addressing
you go ahead and talk.
Okay. Well, my thing to talk about, it's like not that, so it's completely opposite.
Chris made mention about the .ca
Hey, Vince,
domains,
how are you?
and the CAs have to do with Canada usually. So he had to have a bunch of his clients provide them with scans of birth certificates.
Wow.
To prove that they were a Canadian resident. And that might happen again with the EU end of things.
When they sent the email to verify and they clicked send, did they say A at the end of it? I would be very curious if they were just like, I have to send this, enter A? I don't know. Like,
yeah, we have now just lost our...
Just in my head, it was like right there.
Bethany just logged off. She's gone.
Vince is still here. We
Vince
love
is here,
Vince is here. So let's transition into something that I want business owners as well as freelancers to pay really, really close attention to, and that is kind of their environment that they work in as a business, right? So we have a lot of freelancers that work from home. We have some that actually have offices, or they do like co-offices or virtual offices and stuff like that. But I think sometimes people don't put a lot of thought and process into their environment when they work from home, right? So like some people are really disciplined and slip right in, and they could work from, like when we first met, you did that. Like you had the office was down in the basement. He woke up, did his breakfast, did his tea, went straight downstairs, worked, and then he came back up.
On clothes.
Yeah, like it was like one of those things, like you slipped right in. But I do know that there's a lot of people that struggle with being able to work from home, and maybe their office is in the same area as their living room, and they get distracted or they get stressed out. So with a lot of the stuff that's going on, like over this last year to 2 years, in mental health and mindset, it's important to make sure that you create boundaries with you can be a business owner and a freelancer, but at no point does that necessarily bleed fully into your life and your lifestyle, if that makes sense. At the same time, your life and lifestyle should not bleed into your business. And let me express this and explain what I mean. So if you have drama in your life, right, you've got to be able to figure out whatever the mindset is and keep your environment clear enough to where it doesn't distract you and it doesn't influence the work that you're performing, right? The same thing as if you're really, really deep into projects and you're doing different stuff, and say that your office is in the same environment as your home. If you work too much, then all of a sudden you lose the relaxation gene in your actual home. So you might actually find that you experience like some form of anxiety when you're in your house. So it's very important to pay attention to what is your environment, how can you have certain areas that are clean and clear, or habits. Like some people I know go for a walk before they start their work day if they work from home. So it kind of like triggers them in. Some people drive to work, right? So instead these people like walk around. That was my driving. Instead people walk around.
Cow, but,
people walk around the block, or I even know some people that'll drive to the coffee shop, get their coffee every single day, and then drive back to the office, and when they walk back through the door, it's like in work mode.
Right. I had a friend of mine, his big thing, he had one room in his house, that was his office, and he took a shower in the morning, he got dressed like going into the office, goes into that room, closes the door, he's working. That's it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Hello, Ron. How you doing?
Hey, Ron. How are you? I think it's also important to make sure that your environment, it makes you feel good, right? So either, I don't know, for me, I have bright walls in my office, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that was a big step for us. I was kind of scared. I didn't share that for months. But then I told Conor, I was like, I've been in cubicles. I've been in white
really
offices.
bright.
I've done all this shit of just bland. Instead, I want every single wall to be a different color. And so that makes me happy, and that environment makes me thrive. Sometimes I'll still come home and work, and that environment makes me thrive as well. But I do know some people that have shit tons of clutter everywhere, and then they wonder why their projects are all chaotic, and they can't breathe, and they can't build and create because the environment's kind of messy and cluttered. And you have to want to fucking have fun. I think you have to invest in yourself and what do you want it to look like. Like recently, you invested in an office chair, right? That was not. Hello, I lost you. I'm talking about your office chair.
You're talking about my office chair.
Yeah, you invested in the office chair, which was substantially higher than other office chairs that we've replaced, but it also made you feel really good, and it looks really fucking cool. It looks like a spaceship chair, basically.
Well, yeah, it looks good, but the most important factor is that it actually functions for what it is. It was a chair that's designed for lengthy sitting in a chair.
Yeah.
Most office chairs are, if you look on them, there's actually a tag on the chair that says the maximum number of hours of sitting. So most chairs are anywhere between 2 and 4 hours. Some of the luxury chairs that you look at, you go down to, for us it's Nebraska Furniture Mart, but any of your furniture stores, and they've got those big executive chairs, the leather thing with the high back.
We actually met somebody this week that actually looked like a recliner. I was like, damn, I wouldn't get shit done if I owned that fucking chair. It's not happening.
So a lot of those are in that 5 and 6 hour range, but my particular one, it's rated for 16 hours of sitting.
Yeah.
Now, I never want to do 16 hours of sitting, but it allows your body to adjust and so forth. So,
and then, unless you're making $1 million a minute, I think at that point you might make some kind of flight. You want a castle and a helicopter and a moat and an island.
At $1 million a minute, I don't need to sit there for 16 hours. Just let me sit there for an hour, get my 60 million, and call it good.
Yeah, you're good. So Chris said we go to a co-space every couple of weeks so we can get out of the house and change space. Yeah, that's a really, really good idea. I know a lot of people that actually do that, or they go to coffee shops. I'm personally not a fan of coffee shops, mainly because you still have the buzz around, even if you have headphones in, virtually, you're still paying attention to all the stuff going on. But I definitely think if you have a co-working space, absolutely, it really can just reset your brain.
There's
to be
a place here in town, Space is in town, and there's a couple of startup places where you can go in and spend $5 and take their office space for the day. So those kind of environments are always good. A breakaway and back to society and people around you. I enjoyed working, behind the monitor on my end, but
One of the other things I wanted to touch base about, just with mindset and mental health, is the events that you're participating on behalf of your company. So, sometimes people, we briefly talked in other videos about networking, but sometimes people feel like they should or they have to go to these specific events. I would just say, audit and figure out, how do you feel? Is it delivering value? Are you able to deliver value to the group or the event that you're going to? I know you're a huge fan of fundraisers for golf. One, because you like to golf, but you actually have really good business conversations whenever you golf, because people don't necessarily off the street say, hey, what's SEO? But if you're 9 to 18 rounds of golf, then they're like, oh, what's SEO? And then you can kind of have a chat back and forth, if that makes sense.
Yeah, shame on them if they ask on the second hole.
Because it gets all the analogies.
They get me for the next 4 hours.
You're pretty good, though.
So.
You're pretty good.
Yeah,
shame on them. It's their business is probably exploding by the advice that you give.
Probably. Not just from a business end of things, of making sure or checking what the values are, but just in life in general. For me, I don't necessarily like going to birthday parties.
Yeah.
It's got no value to me. Yeah, there's cake. I don't care about cake. I would rather sit in the backyard with a cigar. There's graduation parties which are happening right now, but I have such a disconnect. I might know the person, but I don't know their kid. So showing up to the graduation party doesn't do me any good, and I only know that one person. So the other 50 people that are going to be in the place, I'm not going to know them, and it's a great opportunity to go meet other people, but I don't have an interest in meeting other people right now.
Yeah.
My life is full of the stuff that I need.
And one thing about you specifically, because sometimes coders or developers or even analytical people, right? Like sometimes they can get behind their desktop or computer screen and you stay there too long. And when you stay there too long, you get really fatigued, you get tired, frustrated. So we actually probably once every couple months, we wind up getting Conor into an event and or some kind of thing where he can sub for someone and just sit into a meeting and kind of communicate. So the point is to be able to get him connected to other people and get him engaged back and forth.
Keep my socialization skills
right
sharp.
to a minimum or whatever. But then what happens is, like, if he's working on a complex problem, him actually stepping away from his computer for that one event gives him the breathe room and the space. When he comes back, he actually gets the solution.
Yep.
So you've experienced that multiple times, whether it's advanced code or it's a problem solution that you're trying to get, and then step away. And it's like not stepping away for a cigar or taking a walk, but stepping away at a completely different event that's not going home and sitting on the couch, interacting with different people, and then all of a sudden you'll get flooded with a solution and have it.
I mean, they say the same thing in an office environment, that if you're sitting for an hour, you should get up and walk around for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever
You know,
it
the
is.
one thing, go ahead.
Bring back the cigarettes and let everybody else go out and smoke, you know?
The one thing that worked for me, I read an article last week. Hey, Maureen, how are you?
Hello.
I read an article last week of this gentleman and whatnot, but one of the things he said was set a timer for 25 minutes, and for 5 minutes get up and walk around. I did that this week and experienced like crazy amount of productivity. Now, here's what I'll tell you about the statistics and all that stuff. I think you can find information to like support anything, right? I just say try it and test it, because sometimes that'll work for me. Other times I could do 90-minute blocks. Other times I could sit for 4 hours and get the exact stuff done and be completely lit up and in whatever I'm doing.
And if I'm troubleshooting something, if I'm hardcore into something that's not working and I want to sit there, I'll sit there for 3-4 hours and not move.
And that's
and
the
get
time I should
frustrated.
not walk in and ask him what he wants for lunch.
Yes.
Like, I know that. Like, after 7 years of it, I know
Just
finally.
order
But
something.
it took me a long time to like figure that out. So one other thing about just paying attention to is the knowledge that you are consuming. So as a business owner, you more than likely will always evolve, like in some form of some level. There's actually it's cool because when you own a business or you're a freelancer and you're doing your own gig, right? You learn also as a person, right? You learn how to manage relationships well and figure out what your worth is and your bill rate, and how to be able to deliver things like at high value and within a time frame. But I think sometimes what happens, especially in social media specifically, there's so much noise out there and there's so much material and there's so many books out there that I think you have to like really pay attention to what is the knowledge that you're consuming, and is it actually helping you, or could it possibly be distracting and hurting you? Specifically, I see a lot of business owners that like wind up following and reading all these blog articles, and it's like, okay, cool, you read all those blog articles, but now what are you going to do?
Yeah, the
right?
self-help books are the, how to optimize your business and how to improve your time and how to have more time with your family. There's entire books about this, and people will go out and they'll buy 4 or 5 of these different books, and at the end of the day, after everything is read, there's still no change. It's just like, it's like a diet. I mean, you go on a diet, you lose a bunch of weight, the diet's over, and you put all the weight back on. And I am 100% guilty of that. I will drop my 30-40 pounds and then I will put them back on again in the course of the next year.
You're good.
So,
but I think like even there's like those different softwares out there or apps like Feedly, right? Like you can say what you're interested in and then you can read all the different articles. But I think sometimes you can get drowned in all that content and all those blogs. So like figure out, are you reading it to read it, or are you reading because you're looking for an answer? Like what is the information that you're looking to put into, and what are you trying to get? And sometimes business owners will come to us and be like, hey, I want to blog and I don't know how to start. And so where I always tell them is start with the frequently asked questions, but then also the information that you're consuming and the knowledge that you have, how can you like take the gems out of that and put it into your own? So it's like one of those things of how do you figure out all this stuff and how do you use it, like in paying attention to the quality knowledge that you have. He's writing me love
I'm
notes
making
over
notes.
here. It's probably about time. He's like,
is
oh gosh,
time.
there's so much time left. So, yeah, so I just say watch the quality of the stuff that you're consuming and then pay attention to the quality that you're putting out. So, like, one of my biggest pet peeves is whenever people create blog articles just to create them and it's shit content, because I'm like, I really want to follow you and read your journey. So, write about stuff that I want to learn about and value add. So,
and even on that, talking about blogs and writing stuff that other people want to read. I wrote a blog a couple weeks ago talking about the reviews in Google that were dropping off. And I actually had a phone call yesterday from a company in Florida.
Yeah. From Florida.
From Florida. She called up and we had a chat on the...
Yeah, I just did that.
We had a chat on the phone, but basically she had typed in a search on Google and my article was number 2 on the list, and she clicked on it, read everything, understood it, and then called us and said, hey, what can I do to fix this?
Yeah, that was a really cool phone call.
Yeah, it was
cool.
a good little chat. Not sure how we can help or where things are going to go from there, but if you're writing a blog article or if you're putting content online, make sure that it's something that other people want to read. Writing for the sake of writing doesn't do any good.
Right.
So when you're talking about doing intent and reading different things and what you're going to learn out of it, being able to digest that and put that back
Vanessa, how are
for
you?
other people, that would be the best thing to do.
Yeah.
Hello, Vanessa.
Yeah, that's what I recommend is just like pay attention to what you're putting out there, how you're putting it out there. And even if you have to like go to a couple friends and be like, hey, I'm looking to offer this, what questions do you have? That's always a good place to start. But I think for the knowledge, just to bring it home, like as business owners, we can get super duper distracted, or what happens is you might go and read 10 books and they're like conflicting with what you know works inside you. So you might actually alter and get your wires crossed and stop doing something that's actually working really freaking good for you. We see this happen all the time where people hold themselves back, or they'll be doing really good and then they read a book and they get distracted. And it's like, no, put your blinders back on and stay and just keep going. Like you know what you're doing. So I think at some point if you wind up consuming too much stuff that's crap, you might actually think you have a problem and you don't have a problem at all. Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up and enjoy the rest of our weekend. We hope all of you have a great weekend as well. If you do have any questions, we're going to be back next week. In the pipeline, we've got a couple different webinars that are going to be coming up to help business owners as well as freelancers down the way. So make sure you follow us. We're putting it on our personal page, this specific thing, just because we want to keep it kind of like casual. Actually, I just want to be able to cuss, and on personal pages, you kind of can get away with it a little bit more than business. A little bit more. He still tells me, he's like, don't cuss. And I'm like, brr, 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 brr.
We do still have, of course, the YouTube. So Big Red SEO is on YouTube.
Yep.
So we have some of our more professional versions.
Yeah.
But if you look at them, I still say fuck and shit and everything else.
Yeah. You do. It's just kind of our language. It's just kind of our language. But we're glad that you came here. We value your time, and we're super happy that you're following us. And we hope you have a great weekend. Anything else?
No, it's hot in Omaha, and there's a storm later on this weekend, so follow my Facebook and you'll find out when that's going to hit.
Yeah, he loves to do weather. All right, guys, thanks so much for joining us. We'll talk soon.
All right,
Bye-bye.
guys. Bye now.